and there's all different types of ways to get that path. There is like, you know, in the 80s, it was kind of like, start doing open mics, work your way into clubs, get on the Tonight Show. Johnny Carson goes like this, and then
calls you over to the
calls
couch,
you to the couch, and then you tour, you know, for the next 30 years. Like,
did you see the Comedy Store documentary on Showtime?
I haven't watched it yet, but LA was where the first place I moved after I started in Florida, so I was there for 4 years, and I spent a lot of time at the store.
Yeah, so there's a lot of the comics on that series. It's an amazing series. I definitely recommend you checking it out. But there are a lot of late night TV hosts today that used to be comedians that people shit on because they're like, oh, this person isn't funny, they're just pandering. And I kind of fell into that category where I'll watch Jay Leno or David Letterman and I'm like, you know, this is kind of funny, but how are people watching this right now? And then I see them in the Comedy Store documentary and they're absolute killers.
Yes.
Like getting on stage at 20, 25 years old. And it made me think about what they're doing now differently because I had no idea. I mean, I heard names. Like I heard people say Kinnison, or I heard people just kind of like talk about the legends of the past, like Freddie Prinze. But I never actually knew what it was like to be in the Comedy Store and in comedy back in the 80s. And then it's like you see these guys who are doing stand-up every night in hopes that they're going to get a sitcom or they're going to get some sort of hosting role. And it just made me kind of take a step back and think about it differently, where I'm like, I'm judging these guys way too quickly that are comedic geniuses because I'm only seeing kind of the last, like the tip of the iceberg of their career. Like I grew up with the tip and they're, you know, they've had this whole journey
and
towards
the nature of those jobs is like you have to be as broad as possible. You have to be, you know, not as safe as possible. You have to be pretty safe. Like you don't necessarily get to do the thing that you most want to do. You're doing a version of it, but it's not quite that. You're watered down when you're on network TV for sure, you know?
Are you like does that path exist anymore? Do comedians think about going through stand-up to get to a network TV spot, or is it more like it's so saturated now that you just want to get clips up on Instagram and YouTube, and then whatever job you can get, you can get? Well,
yeah, it's kind of interesting in that, like, we don't, like, the world has changed so much since those days, right? We don't have that monoculture anymore of, you know, the Tonight Show is the dream, because it used to be in like the 70s, it was like 40 million people were watching the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
So if you go and do a set on that and 40 million people see you and you do good, you can really sell tickets for years to come. But now, you know, it's like on a decent night, the Tonight Show gets 1.8 million viewers. Like that's nothing. You post a video to Instagram and it will get 7 million views if it like takes off, you know? So look, it's still a good gig if you can get it and you kind of sponge off that corporate money because they have a lot of money to give, but it's not the only way anymore. Now people are building their own things, their own, you know, direct to their fans, their own podcasts, and they're making great money and they get a more direct connection to their fans, and they get to be sponsored like by their fans directly and not have to ask Budweiser, you know, for money.